Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today we're going to ask, what do you want? Hello everybody and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. So we've probably all seen the movie The Notebook, or at least are familiar with it to a degree to know what it's about. I will confess, I have not seen the movie Notebook, but I have seen plenty of references to it in the form of it's supposed to be this amazing chick flick per se, this amazing romance, I guess, although it sounds like it's pretty dysfunctional in nature. But there is one classic scene in it that is referred to often as a comedic example of the difference between men and women. And I've seen this scene in its cut form. Again, I've never seen the entire movie, so I don't know the context of it other than it's some buildup of this dysfunction between these two characters. Was it Ryan Gosling and is it Rachel McAdams, I think is who it is? I don't remember. Anyway, irrelevant. But it's this point where they're having this kind of breakdown and he's asking her, what do you want? And she's like, I don't know. And he's basically like, what do you want? And it gets into this emotional, big, high, intense, dramatic scene of him essentially screaming at her, what do you want? She's like, I don't know. I can't answer that question, right? This kind of freak out mode, because to her, it's such a weighted question. There's so many variables. There's so many interpretations. There's so many different answers that she could give based on any given type of situation. Versus him, it's like, boom, what do you want? What do you want? You know, and it's just that question of whatever's relevant to your situation right now. What do you want? And who of us can relate on either end? I go through that a little bit on, I guess, more relatable to the female characters of, yeah, because my mind, I think a lot in third, fourth, fifth order effects in the sense of, yes, I want this thing, but in order to get it, I need to do this and this and this. In order to make that happen, I need to have this happen. And it goes through these levels and layers of, yeah, this is great over here, but there's all these other variables that come into play. And it's not as simple as, you know, I just want that thing, right? Like maybe I want Chinese food tonight for dinner, but there's like 100 Chinese restaurants within 20 miles of me. And I don't know that I want to drive over that far. And, oh, do I want to pay for delivery? And, oh, is it going to be cold by the time it gets here? Like all these variables come into the simple statement of, I want Chinese food tonight. Well, what kind? And how far are you willing to go to get it? How much are you willing to pay to get good Chinese food versus kind of okay Chinese food? And all these different variables come into it. And it's really kind of that analysis paralysis concept. And I am absolutely guilty of it. But there is also a time of like, just what do you want? Answer the question. First thing comes to your mind, I want Chinese food. All right, cool. We're going to go get Chinese food, right? In this example. In our example, and the way I'm trying to relate this to you is in the sense of your business. A lot of people, and I referred to this before in a previous episode, a lot of people start a business because they don't want something. They've started it out of a, well, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to have a boss over here, right? I did not like my boss experience that I had previously or I've had up until now. I no longer want that. I don't like not having control. I don't like being on somebody else's schedule. So it starts as this, you know, I know what I don't want. But then it kind of a lot of times doesn't transition into the I want this, right? Like knowing what you don't want is a good start. It is a great starting point to define what you stand for, you know, by defining what you don't stand for. It's a good starting point, but you can't stop there. You can't end there. Nobody is successful, like truly successful long term by just focusing on what they don't want. Okay? Does that make sense? You can understand this, correct? You have to, at some point, while that negative, while that stick may be pushing you towards something, there has to be on the other end that positive, that carrot that continues to drive you and draw you to that success, whatever that looks like for you. You can't just say, I don't want to have a boss, while becoming your own boss and then not figuring out what makes you a good boss, what makes you somebody that other people would follow you in the form of a staff member or employees if you go that route. You can't say, I don't want to be poor anymore without having a plan to earn revenue and make capital and be profitable to where you can pay your bills. And you can't say, I don't want control over my schedule anymore, and then start a business and now you're working yourself to absolute death and sickness and your stress level is off the charts and you've got a stroke and or heart attack in your near future. Because that's just not having a different kind of not having control, right? You understand what I'm saying with that? I don't know how to say it properly. Because there has to be a point where you transition, like, okay, I know I don't want to work, all these crazy shift work hours. And that would certainly happen to me in the military. I was working insane shift work hours. And that was the drawing, like, I'm going to go to this squadron because their hours are better, because I'm no longer on shift work. And maybe I can actually spend Christmas with my family and birthdays and things like that. But then there had to be a transition of, I'm not just here, I'm here no longer just because I don't want to be over there in that squadron. I'm here because I believe in the mission of this squadron. I believe in the people. I have this opportunity, all those things, right? It has to become this draw instead of the initial negative, all right? So after beating that. And we can probably all relate, going back to the notebook story of it becomes a, what do you want? And your initial answer may be, oh, I just don't want this. Cool, great starting point. Well, what does that look like on the flip side of that coin of, well, what do you want? What is the income level you want? Are you okay making $80,000 a year? Will that actually perfectly suffice for whatever situation and desires and goals you have? Are you $500,000 a year? Are you a $10 million business? Like, what do you want and what are you doing to make those things happen versus just getting yourself away from whatever pain that you don't want? Same thing with, having a boss. What kind of boss do you want to be to your people if you are in that leadership position? What kind of control do you want to have over your schedule? Are you setting yourself up and your team and support system around you in order to be able to say, hey, it's my kid's 8th birthday. I'm going to take today off and we're going to go hit Chuck E. Cheese or whatever that looks like for you. We're going to do this family vacation versus I've built my business in the sense of, great, I no longer am reportable and have a time clock and a time card that I'm punching in and out from my previous job. But now literally this place will not run without me and I have to be here 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Good job, right? Congratulations. You now just created this other little prison for yourself. You don't have a boss, you don't have a schedule, but now you're tied and married to this because you didn't set up the people processes in order to create that schedule that you did want, right? And it has to be a little bit realistic. At least initially, you can't be like, I want to work 1 hour a day or, 1 hour every other week. There may be a point that you set up your business to where you can do that, be that absentee type of owner or whatever that is, but probably not in the beginning, at least to start with, unless you are independently wealthy of some sort already. But maybe you can relate this a little bit more on a personal level. So we have our oldest son will be 15 in a couple months, and he is absolutely in that phase of his life to where he hasn't defined what he wants yet. And it's not that I'm like, you have to decide right now, or what do you want to do with your life? But we're starting to have those conversations of, well, what do you enjoy doing? And then and getting those blank looks of that too, of starting with, okay, well, what do you not want? And because he doesn't know what he wants, everything becomes what he doesn't want. Does that make sense? For lack of a desire, for lack of a goal, a target, something to strive for, everything becomes, I don't want to do that. Eventually. And you can see how that works. And this is absolutely true in the teenage mind. Because you don't have something you want to do other than, maybe play video games or whatever that looks like for your teenager. Absence of that thing to push for, to become a target and a goal to achieve, everything becomes, well, I don't want to do that. And that is certainly the case, and that's happening, and I'm seeing that real time and experiencing it with our oldest son of, trying to draw out of them, like, hey, here's these, what about this? Do you want to do that? Well, no. How about this? Do you want to do that? No. Are you interested in this? No. Right? Everything becomes not worth the effort because he doesn't have this kind of, a little bit of advanced thinking, long-term goals for him. And that's common of any sort of adolescent person, male or female, young boy, young girl. I certainly went through it. Although it feels like not as extreme as what my oldest son is going through right now. I was definitely more, as I've said before, an observer by nature and kind of went with the flow and whatever presented itself to me. There were a few instances where I came across like, yep, I want that. So therefore I'm going to do the things I need to do in order to get that, like getting a car and being able to pay for that and have that freedom as a teenager. But in business, this becomes easily a factor of not knowing what your business wants or not knowing what you want your role in your business to be. And therefore you start setting yourself up for all these micro no's. Like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. Not going to do that. And then pretty soon everything becomes I'm not going to, or I can't do that, or that's not for me because it has no desire in it. Right? You're only running away from the pain instead of running towards a goal, running towards a target, running towards growth or some sort of achievement or just enhanced self-improvement of some form or fashion in your business. Because we all, as humans, it's kind of what keeps us going. It's that prospect of success in the future, that potential for an achievement, that potential for growth. It's what gets us going as a race in general, right? That striving for growth and achievement. And absence of that, when you're just running away from something, some pain point or some failure or whatever that looks like for you that you've identified, and it's really no recipe for long-term success, whether that's in relationships or business or community, whatever that is. But I wanted to, yes, good. Start with, if you're not there yet, start with writing down, okay, I know I don't want this. I don't want this and don't want this. Well, what is the opposite of those things? If you don't want, to have a horrible boss, what does a good boss look like? And if you're in that position, what does that look like for you to be that to other people, to want to build your business that you're in or that you've started? And you can answer that for each of those areas. And I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment and we can absolutely discuss it. For me, I didn't want to be deployed all the time. I didn't want to have, these random people in a state that I don't live in, working for a company that I'm not necessarily married to. It's just another company telling me oh, you need to go here, you need to go to here, and we'll bring you home when we find it convenient, even though we have these, contracts and stuff. And that was the initial, I know I don't want to do that anymore. And then there was that, kind of mix of the insanity of the last couple of years and all the regulations and rules and, again, insanity of the last couple of years that kind of mixed into that and helped that decision. But it was that kind of initial pain point of, I know I don't want to do this, even though the money was phenomenal and good, but it was starting to seriously affect, family life and relationships. But again, I can't just, in my case, I can't just be well, I know I don't want to do that. I have to, even if you're independently wealthy, there's many, many, many examples of people that by all concepts have made it, right? They don't have to work another day in their life and they just get dissatisfied and they don't feel fulfilled and they start something new. That's why, already people that are multi-millionaires and billionaires, they continue to work. They continue to start new businesses because humans in general have to have something to work for. Work is good. They have to have something to build and strive and create. It's just kind of how we're wired in general. And you may not be at that point where you kind of get that. You're yeah, if I had $1 million, I would just spend every day fishing. Well, probably not. That would be great to, take a month to and do that and spend fishing. But we all need that variety and spice of life in order to make it interesting and worthwhile, right? So going back, what do you want, right? Which side are you on? Are you Ryan Gosling yelling at somebody saying, what do you want? Tell me, so we can figure this out. We can at least get on the same page. Or are you on, I think it is Rachel McAdams, right? Are you on her end where you're you've got so many things going on and you just can't decide. You can't go, all right, this is the target. This is what I want, whatever that is for you. and how to figure that out. If you don't have somebody that's asking you what you want, find that, whether it be a mentor, a coach, a consultant, some trusted family member that has experience in what you're doing and believes in you. Find that for you, that can be that sounding board, that you can say, well, I know I don't want this, so what does it look like to want something new, to want something different, something that I can actually work towards instead of just away from. Cool? That makes sense? Hope it does. I hope you're finding this beneficial. Thank you so much for listening, watching, whichever you're on YouTube. I am in the process of getting the YouTube channel all caught up with previous episodes. We're almost there, trying to post and get them all edited as quickly as possible so that catalog is there for you to come back to whenever you need. I appreciate the likes and shares and subscription on YouTube, especially as well. So thank you for that. All right. No matter where you're at in the world, have a fantastic afternoon. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.